Welcome to FX Options University, recorded live at the International Securities Exchange, the world's largest equity options exchange. Join the industry's top trading professionals as they provide insight and strategies for trading in the currency markets using FX options. FX options are a low-risk alternative to hedging currency moves in any market condition.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Rick is talking about, we're looking at some of the heights or the depths of these candles here, and what we're trying to confirm is we're trying to confirm to ourselves, who's really controlling the direction of this thing. So for example, if I'm seeing a series of very tall green candles, that tells me that there's pretty much the bulls are playing this currency pair and they're driving it higher. So if they're driving it higher and I start to see that these green candles are getting a little bit shorter, a little bit more stout, and maybe even they're being interspersed with some red candles, but the red candles are still kind of looking like a spinning top. They're not really that tall. They're not really that deep. What I may be seeing is I may be seeing a change of momentum. Not only am I seeing volatility coming down a little bit, but I may be seeing a change of momentum. Now, from that point of view, I might step back and I might start thinking, okay, even though I'm not seeing a big change of momentum to the downside, I might see a topping off pattern here. Well, a strategy for a topping off pattern, just going back to stock and option basics, might just be to do a straight covered call. Or instead of doing that, I might want to go ahead and do an in-the-money spread instead of an out-the-money spread here. So I might want to start looking to some strategies that are going to play in with the candlesticks, the technical analysis that's going to help me to be in the right place at the right time. So as Rick was saying, we're not using these to predict what's going to happen next. Instead, we're going to use these to kind of position our trade or our portfolio into the right direction of the market that the direction is currently going at that point in time. And volatility I consider to be almost part direction as well. Thanks, Rick.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Along with that, we need to also define these bodies. Now, the color is going to tell us an important bit of information because it tells us the direction of the trade throughout the day from the open to the close. So if a candle is colored as a red body, that means that the open was at the top of the body, that is the shaded rectangular part, and the closing price was at the bottom. Now, what is that? Literally, what is the story that's being told there? It's simply this, that the sellers for that period were in control. They were the ones that were more motivated, the stronger of the two sides. Likewise, if it's a green body, it's just the reverse. It means it opened at the bottom and closed at the top. So as you can see, the four data points that we get are the open, the high, low, and the close, all captured in one part of the chart. Now, we're going to categorize these, as Shawn was alluding to just a moment ago, we're going to categorize these into some key categories. The first is going to be the category of indecision. This simply means that the buyers and sellers are basically at an impasse, that there's not a strong movement in either direction. Now, this type of information is particularly relevant whenever it occurs at the top of an uptrend or the bottom of a downtrend. We're not particularly interested in this if it just occurs in the middle of a range of motion. But if we have a stock that's in an uptrend, namely the green candles, higher highs, higher lows, and by the way, this is a non-negotiable. You have to, if you're taking notes, this is one place where you want to make a note here. Non-negotiable is you need to have these candle patterns occur at key support or resistance levels. But let's say we've got an uptrend, green candles, higher highs, higher lows, and we reach a key resistance level, and at the key resistance level, one of these indecision candles is formed. That's important information. That tells us that the momentum of the buyers has stalled. Now, what it does not yet tell us is whether the sellers are grabbing control or not. It simply tells us that the buyers have opened up a window of opportunity. So indecision candles require one more period of confirmation. So what are these indecision candles? Well, this first one is known as a doji, D-O-J-I, and that simply refers to any candle where the open and the close are equal. As you can see, there is in fact, a top shadow showing us a high and a bottom shadow showing us a low, but there's really no body. The body is a straight line. And that the interpretation there is the open and the close are at the same price. Now, Shawn used the term spinning top a moment ago. That's what these two are. Spinning top has a top shadow and a bottom shadow that's about equal. They should be relatively equal. Not that important what the length of them is. But the important part is between them is a relatively small body. What does relatively small mean? Well, you compare it against the candle bodies that preceded it for some period of time. If you're looking at a daily chart, usually I like to look at a month or two, and those bodies should be relatively small. That tells us the open and the close are about equal, and therefore the buyers and sellers are again, they're at an impasse. Now, here's the thing to keep in mind. Because the body's relatively small, the color of the body's not that important. It's just the shape of the candle that's important. So these are what we would categorize as indecision candles that require confirmation. So if you were to see one of these happen at a resistance level at the top of an uptrend, you have to wait until the next period, and ideally you would see a red candle with a lower close indicating that, in fact, the sellers have gained control. That's the story that's being told there. So that's the first category, and that's indecision. Now, by the way, we are keeping an eye on the questions. So as we go through this, if you have any questions about what we're talking about, don't hesitate to type those into the Q&A box, and Shawn and I will weave these in throughout the course of the presentation. I suspect we'll probably get more questions as we jump into the live charts and take a look at some real action. But for now, certainly feel free to throw questions out on these also. Next category.
Hey, Rick, I want to.
Yeah, please.
If there's time here, I'd like to jump in on one of the indecision points there. One of the things that when we're talking about is exactly to do when we see a candle like that for our own trading. I'm not going to make any kind of a decision to enter into a trade. Doesn't matter if it's bullish or bearish. I'm not going to take something like a spinning top or a doji and actually move into a trade. So this is never, for me at least in my trading, going to be an entry point. Now the confirmation that's going to follow up needs to be pretty strong confirmation for me to move in here. But instead, let's say I'm already in a trade, and let's say the trade's been going my way, or maybe it hasn't been going my way. But the point is that when I'm already into a trade and I see something indecisive like a doji, that might be heads up to either tighten my stop order, or if it's going against me, hey, it may just be time to go ahead and liquidate the position and take my small loss and move on to the next trade. But I'm certainly not going to look at a spinning top and say, oh yeah, based on this spinning top, I'm going to go ahead and take the position. I'm going to have quite a bit of confirmation in the next candle, and hopefully supported by some volume before I decide to actually get in. So usually something like a doji or a spinning top is more helpful for me in adjusting my stop order more than anything else.
Oh, excellent. That, the good point along with that is that not all candles are created equal. There are some that have you got to throw a little bit more confidence on them than others. This next category would probably fall into that somewhat, and that is the initial reversal candles. These are the candles that are not indecision, but rather the first stage of a reversal, and but yet we still have to wait for confirmation in the same way that we said with the indecision candles, we have to wait for confirmation. These we really ought to wait for confirmation also, but going into that, they are, in order of priority, I would consider these to be a little bit stronger. For instance, the one that we're looking at right here is what's known as a shooting star. A shooting star is basically the first thing that you have to have an initial uptrend in place. And typically that's going to be evidenced by the green candles, higher highs, higher lows. But once again, at a key resistance level, remember I said support and resistance is a non-negotiable in all of these. So at a key resistance level, we have this candle that's formed with the small body and the long shadow on top. Now let me just give you the pieces of this, and then we'll talk about how this is used. Here's the first piece. The first piece is the body has to be relatively small. Now, just like with the spinning top, because the body's relatively small, the color is not important. In other words, a red shooting star is not necessarily more powerful in terms of a signal than a green shooting star. Fact is, they're both relatively small bodies, and therefore the open and close are about the same.
Thank you for participating in this week's session. Please join us again next week. Get trading ideas, exchange rates, webinars, news, and commentary. Visit www.fxoptions.com. ISE FX options can be easily traded through all options-enabled brokerage accounts. These exchange-listed securities are cash-settled in U.S. dollars and have a European-style exercise.